What is up, people crew? Today we are covering 5 creepy, unsolved national park disappearances that'll drive you crazy. Number 5. Bessie and Glen Hyde. There are a staggering number of disappearances that tend to happen in the vast, steep-sided canyon carved by the Colorado River in Arizona, the Grand Canyon. Glen and Bessie Hyde were 2 newlyweds who vanished while attempting to run the rapids of the Colorado River in 1928. They were never seen again. This was not your typical honeymoon vacation. Back in the 1920s, there were no commercial Grand Canyon adventures like there are today. This treacherous expedition was usually only attempted by experienced explorers. This was certainly beyond Glen and Bessie's criteria. They would attempt to complete this insane trip on their own, and to top it off, they were planning to traverse the Colorado River in a precariously home-built boat. This did not seem to faze them. In fact, nothing seemed to faze Glen and Bessie. Despite the dangers of the torrential river and rapids that lay ahead, they decided to forgo life jackets as they packed for their expedition. Equipped with only basic supplies and a homemade scow dubbed Rain in the Face, the honeymooners set sail on their final fateful adventure. This trip was not only a honeymoon voyage, but a daring plan for the couple to rake in some dough upon their return. Glen Hyde was a farmer from Idaho and an expert boat builder who had years and years of rafting experience under his belt. When they successfully completed their mission, he planned for the pair to go on a lecture circuit to profit off the tale of their trip. He was also eager to set a new speed record for traveling through the Grand Canyon. Bessie, on the other hand, did not have much experience in boating. If she succeeded in running these rapids, she would be the first woman in the world to have ever done so. The 22-year-old aspiring poet was hoping to make history as the first woman to make the trip. However, things didn't go as planned. Glen and Bessie were last seen on Sunday, November 18th, 1928. While boating below Hermit Rapid. They hiked Bright Angel Trail out of the canyon to resupply and came upon Emery and Ellsworth Kolb's studio. The 2 Kolb brothers were professional photographers. At this point, Bessie and Glen had been on the river for 26 days straight, and it seemed that Bessie was reluctant to continue the trip. Bessie and Glen asked the Kolb brothers to take their photographs, and they said they would return later to pick them up. These would be some of the final photos ever taken of the couple. After snapping a few photos, Bessie and Glen casually told the Kolbs they did not have life jackets. Alarmed, the Kolbs attempted to warn them, but Glen simply responded with a laugh. Bessie, however, looked very nervous. Before departing, Emery's daughter Emily showed up at the studio. Bessie told her something quite bizarre, something that seemed to foreshadow the ending of their trip. Bessie remarked to Emily, "I wonder if I shall ever wear pretty shoes again." As it turns out, Bessie's worries were warranted. This was one of the last times Bessie and Glen were ever seen alive again. The last man who may have seen them alive was named Adolph G. Sutro, and he may have even ridden in their boat. A month later, in early December, the Kolb brothers realized Glen and Bessie still had not returned for their photos. They jumped into action, initiating a short-lived search. Not long after a search plane was deployed, the first clue to the honeymooners' fate was spotted. Down the river, snagged on some rocks, sat Bessie and Glen's boat. Eerily enough, the boat was upright and unscathed, full of supplies with no signs of wear and tear, but Glen and Bessie were nowhere to be found. One item discovered in the boat, a camera, held more clues pointing to the fate of the 2 newlyweds. The final photo revealed that Glen and Bessie made it to River Mile 165 around November 27th. This was the last clue that would ever be discovered. What could have possibly happened to Glen and Bessie Hyde? The first theory involves an incredibly disturbing twist. In 1992, a woman named Georgia Clark passed away. Georgia was a Grand Canyon woman and well-known rafter. In an insane twist, she left behind significant secrets after her death, pointing to the fate of Glen and Bessie. Strangely enough, Georgia had never allowed anyone into her home while she was alive, but after she passed away, her friends were given permission to go through her personal belongings. What they found was incredible. While digging through George's belongings, they stumbled upon a birth certificate. A birth certificate with the name Bessie DeRoss. What they found next was even more mysterious. A marriage certificate with the names Glen and Bessie Hyde. Historian Brad Dimmock examined the items from Georgia's home and somehow concluded based on a photograph that Georgia and Bessie Hyde were not the same person. But how? Brad Dimmock also penned a book covering the couple's mysterious disappearance. Is it possible that he does not want the mystery solved since it may affect his book sales? Others point to an entirely different theory that also seems just too coincidental. In the 1970s, attendees of a Grand Canyon rafting trip were warming up around a billowing campfire enjoying dinner. However, their peaceful campfire-side dinner was interrupted by a mysterious attendee's confession, and the night took a peculiar turn. An elderly woman claimed that she was actually Bessie Hyde, and she did not stop there. She went on to describe how she had stabbed Glen to death and escaped the canyon on her own to start a new life. According to the woman, she was tired of Glen's abuse and snapped. This woman even seemed to have resembled Bessie. Although it could never be proven that she was not Bessie, she was known as someone who enjoyed telling tall tales, casting doubt into many people's minds. The final theory is Glen and Bessie drowned after hitting some unexpected rapids. Some believe they hit an exceedingly difficult section of the river near mile 232. Causing the unprepared couple to get knocked out of their boat and subsequently drowned due to their lack of life jackets. In 1979, the grim discovery of skeletal remains in the Grand Canyon brought hope that the mystery would finally be solved. On the canyon rim, on a property belonging to Emery Kolb, someone found a skeleton with a bullet still inside the skull. Unfortunately, forensic investigators on the case examined the remains and concluded that the skeleton belonged to a man no older than 22, which ruled out Glen. Unfortunately, this case remains unsolved. Please share your theories in the comments below. Number 4. Alfred Beilhartz.
The Beilhartz family, William Harvey Beilhartz, his wife, and his 11 children, went on a fishing trip together to Estes Park in Colorado. The family had been hiking in the park when they noticed someone was missing, and that someone was little Alfred. The family panicked, hastily starting to search for Alfred, but came back empty-handed. It appeared Alfred had vanished before their eyes. They called in park rangers and an extensive search ensued. They believed Alfred had drowned in the nearby creek, so the search crews decided to focus on the river. After an extensive search of the river, they found nothing, so they next focused on land. The search went on for 10 days, even drawing in the help of 150 men and their bloodhounds, but their attempts to find the little boy turned up nothing. Little Alfred had completely vanished without a trace. Then something incredible happened. 6 miles from where Alfred went missing, a couple were hiking when they were completely caught off guard by what they would see next. The couple claimed to have seen a boy who looked like Alfred clinging to a rock in the area called Devil's Nest, but something was very wrong. Someone or something pulled the boy quickly out of view after spotting the couple. Astonished, they alerted authorities who quickly arrived on site. They could not believe what they were facing. The area the boy was spotted in was treacherous, surrounded by sheer cliffs on all sides. It was so insane that the climbers would need specialized gear to even get up there. The search crew determined it would be impossible for the boy to have made it up. To make it to the top of Devil's Nest, it would take a trained individual with specialized equipment. A little boy simply did not stand a chance. Did the couple really see Alfred? And if so, how could he have scaled this cliff face? Who or what had pulled him back? As if this story isn't crazy enough, a ransom note for $500, equivalent to $9,000 in 2019, was sent to the parents after he had been missing for 5 months. Police launched an investigation into the note and determined it was just a sick hoax. His father believed that Alfred was abducted and is still alive. What do you think?
Number 3. Paula Jean Weldon.
The picturesque town of Bennington, Vermont is no stranger when it comes to mysteries, specifically missing persons mysteries. Between the years of 1945 to 1950, 5 people disappeared without a trace. This notorious area has since been dubbed the Bennington Triangle. In 1946, one of the disappearances in the Bennington Triangle would be no other than Paula Jean Weldon. Paula was a sophomore at Bennington College. She worked and studied extremely hard and needed to take a break. On December 1st, 1946, Paula asked her friends if they wanted to head out on a hike on Vermont's Long Trail, located in the nearby Glastonbury Mountains. They were all busy, so she decided to go on the trek alone. The very last thing she would ever say to her roommate Elizabeth was, "I'm all through with studies, I'm taking a long walk." Packing absolutely nothing and changing into her walking clothes, she headed out of her Dewey House dorm. We can only piece together the puzzle of events leading to Paula's bizarre disappearance based on the following people. Danny Fager owned the gas station just across the way. According to Danny, he spotted a girl matching Paula's description running up and down the side of a gravel pit just outside of Bennington College's entrance at around 2:45 p.m. Paula then apparently hitchhiked to the trail. Lewis Knapp claimed he picked a girl up near the college and dropped her off near the trail. Paula was then spotted by several people in Bickford Hollow at 4 p.m. on her way to the Long Trail. A group of hikers had bumped into Paula and tried to warn her about the clothing she was wearing. She was only wearing a red parka coat and blue jeans, which they stated would be far too cold for the trail. The temperature that night was going to quickly drop and snow was on its way. Brushing off the fellow concerned hikers, Paula decided to continue her hike anyway. Paula Jean Weldon was last seen heading north before she vanished, never to be seen again. Her roommate Elizabeth quickly noticed she was not home, but they believe Paula was staying up late to study as usual. However, when the next morning rolled around and Paula was still missing, Elizabeth knew something was very wrong. Paula's college had a campus policy in which the students would have to sign out if they were going to be off campus after curfew. Elizabeth contacted the college officials, who immediately conducted a search. After checking the sign-out lists, the officials realized Paula had never signed out from campus. She had never returned from her hike. School officials alerted the local sheriff's department, who immediately organized a search, including firefighters and the National Guard. However, these efforts turned out to be fruitless. After extensive searches, the search parties came home empty-handed. Paula Jean Weldon vanished without a trace, never to be seen again. In a perplexing twist, some speculate Paula's father could have had something to do with her disappearance. Days later, a waitress in Fall River, Massachusetts, claimed she served dinner to an agitated young woman who she believed appeared to be Paula. Following this lead, Paula's father jumped into action. Or did he? He subsequently disappeared for 36 hours straight, without telling a single soul to apparently follow the lead. Many believe there was something more sinister to his sudden disappearance and began to point to him as a prime suspect. Paula and her father had not been exactly getting along before her disappearance. Because of this, Paula had been very depressed. It is believed her father did not approve of a boy Paula had been seeing. Paula's father was quick to place the blame of her disappearance on this long-distance boyfriend, stating the boyfriend wanted to call on her. The only evidence he had to substantiate this accusation was proof from a clairvoyant. After the searches finally completed, a lumberjack came forward saying he spotted Paula before her disappearance. Fred Gadet was a resident of the Long Trail. He claimed that night he got into a heated fight with his wife. Filled with rage, he left his shack and was simply driving up and down the trail to cool down. His alibi continued to change, and soon the police considered him a suspect. Allegedly, he drunkenly told two of his friends that he knew where her body was buried, but later claimed it was all just a joke. The leads ran cold, and soon the case did too. Some theorized that perhaps Paula had taken her own life, as friends reported that she was incredibly stressed as a student. However, there's no confirmation that she had these types of tendencies, and she probably wouldn't have asked her friends to accompany her on the hike if she set out on this mission. To this day, Paula remains missing. Let us know what you think in the comments down below.
Number 2. Larry Jeffrey. In 1966, Larry was a young boy, just 6 years old. He was trailing along with his brothers near the peak of Mount Charleston, located in Humboldt-Tiobe National Forest. Mount Charleston is just a stone's throw from the booming city of Las Vegas. Larry was playing with his brothers when they noticed that Larry had wandered off and vanished. The family frantically searched for Larry, calling out his name, only to be met with bleak silence. They contacted local law enforcement, who quickly assembled a search party of 1,000 searchers who combed the area for 16 days straight. During those 16 days, the searchers were able to track Larry's path, but continued to lose it. They discovered the boy had been eating insects and foraging for berries. However, chances that Larry was found alive, even if they were able to find him, were slim to none, as he was wearing light clothing that would not allow him enough resistance against the cold temperatures of the freezing night. There were no signs of an animal attack, and today, Larry Jeffrey's disappearance remains a complete mystery. It must be stated that children are known to hide from strangers out of fear when they go missing. Somewhere out there lies the remains of Larry Jeffrey. Before we get to number 1, please take the time to subscribe and give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Number 1. Dennis Martin. Dennis Martin mysteriously disappeared on June 14, 1969. Never to be seen again. Dennis was an innocent boy, only 6 years old. He vanished in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, Spence Field, in Tennessee while playing hide and seek with his brothers. He was last seen by his father, who saw Dennis going behind a bush to hide. 5 minutes passed and all the children returned to the campsite, all but Dennis. His father, feeling something was not right, immediately began frantically searching for Dennis, even going so far as to run 2 miles down the trail. The family continued to desperately search the area for several hours, but turned up no clues as to where the boy may have gone. Terrified, they contacted the National Park Service Rangers for help at around 8:30 p.m., but it would take the Rangers some time to arrive on site. The search was immediately hampered by the sudden downpour of rain. Nearly 2.5 inches of rain blanketed the area, leading to massive amounts of mud. The downpour was so brutal, it washed out trails and caused the stream to flood. The temperatures also dropped down to around 50 degrees, and no effective search could be conducted until the next morning. This kicked off the largest search in the park's history. Over 1,400 volunteers assembled to comb the area, but this also came with its own problems. Many of the volunteers were untrained. Despite their good intentions, they were only causing more problems. Tracks were quickly lost and eroded by the search party. Before being erased forever, a set of footprints were found leading to a stream. One was barefoot while the other matched the type of shoe Dennis was wearing. A shoe and sock were also found, the last traces of Dennis Martin ever discovered. The boy's father offered a $5,000 reward, equivalent to $34,000 in 2019, for any information that would help find his son. A few years after Dennis's disappearance, a ginseng hunter claimed to have discovered scattered skeletal remains in Big Hollow, about 5 miles north of Spence Field. He kept the gruesome find a hush secret until 1985. The man was afraid he would be prosecuted, but strangely enough, a search of the area where he said he found the remains turned up absolutely nothing. The most probable theory is the boy became lost and perished from exposure, perhaps falling into the stream his footprints were last seen entering. Another theory is the boy was attacked by an animal, but there is absolutely no signs of an animal attack in the area, making this unlikely. A third theory, which is the creepiest of them all, is that he was abducted by someone or something. You see, on the afternoon of Dennis's disappearance, a tourist named Harold Key claimed he and his family heard an enormous, sickening scream. They witnessed a man covered in hair who appeared to be hiding or attempting to flee the scene. They claimed the man appeared to have something carelessly slumped over his shoulder, something that was highly visible and red. Here's where things get super creepy. The description of the highly visible red exactly matches the color of Dennis's shirt that he was wearing when he disappeared. This all occurred not long after Dennis was reported missing, only about 5 miles from where he was last seen. The FBI and park rangers concluded there was insufficient evidence to link the sighting to Dennis's disappearance due to the distance between the two cases. Some believe the hairy man could have been a Bigfoot, who they believe could have easily traveled that distance in that short a time. So what do you think? If you enjoy these videos, be sure to subscribe, be sure to give us a thumbs up, and a playlist is going to pop up right now on your screen, and you're going to love these videos. Go check them out. We'll see you guys next time.